Oh, John, can you do me a favor and turn your camera on and off?
Uh, let's see.
Is this gonna be a John reveal? No, it's
There you
coming.
go.
I was gonna say John reveal.
Looking good, buddy. Looking good.
Like I'm like a Millie.
As usual.
Everybody, welcome to Smark Avengers. My name is Corey, and with me is Dylan and John. How's it going, guys?
Good.
So good.
It's a hard way to tell just exactly how much of that's going to be in the intro, but here we
All
are.
of it.
All of it? All right.
None of it.
If you 20 minutes
None
of
of-
Katy Perry talk and
I don't want the Katy Perry stands to come after me though. They'll get all angry at me, and I just don't have time for that.
Have you seen how people react to her online these days? I feel like there aren't enough Katy Perry stands to come after you. They
I
seem to be
doubt
few and
that.
far between.
No, the woman with the space, for God's sake. She's a hero to women.
Yeah, she brought a flower and then kissed the ground when she got back. Well, anyway.
Right, because Spirit scared her so much that she's like, I'm never going to space again. I saw so many aliens. I'm never going back up there again. That's what she said. It's a direct quote.
That's what she's a direct quote. How are you going to deny that? Well, anyway,
Right.
today is going to be the first of a two-part celebration of Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four. It's a group we've not really talked about ever on the Smark Avengers. I don't think we've ever even mentioned the Fantastic Four, except for a one-off when we were talking about the Human Torch and it being the Jim Hammond version and not Johnny Storm. I think that's literally the only time we've ever brought up the Fantastic Four, except for, yeah, I think it might be it.
There must have been some other time.
There really isn't.
I don't know, man.
There really isn't. I feel like we've talked about the Avengers more than we've talked about the Fantastic Four. And I'm talking
We
comic book
have
Avengers,
talked about
not the movies.
Yeah, we have talked about the Avengers a lot. Well, they're very popular.
So
many of them.
That being said, if you are listening to this, it means that the new Fantastic Four movie, Fantastic Four First Steps, is out next week. And you should go watch that. But until then, we wanted to take some time to celebrate the Fantastic Four's big silver screen debuts before that. And today, much like we've talked about the Sony films and the MCU and Batman, we have to redo the Batman episode at some point still. That's a lost episode. Quite literally lost because the recording is gone forever. But regardless, we're going to talk about 3 movies today. We're going to talk about 2005's Fantastic Four, 2007's Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, and then the 2015 Fantastic Four movie. Are you guys ready to get all up in Mr. Fantastic's stretchiness and the Thing's hardness and the Fantastic Four Human Torch's flameness and Invisible Woman's invisibleness?
You probably could have framed that better.
I was on a path and I just kept going, and I just, I could stop now, but I should just finish.
Started off
See it
good.
through to the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mama didn't raise no quitter.
So, full disclosure is that before this episode, I thought I had only seen one of these 3 films.
Yes.
Which was the first Fantastic Four film. And I wanted to do some research for this episode. I didn't have time to watch all 3, unfortunately. So I watched the first one, the 2005 one. And it turns out that I had not seen this film.
Oh.
I have never seen this film. I watched it about 3 hours ago. I took some notes. So you guys probably don't remember it as freshly as I do, because I wrote down some notes. So that's the only one I'm going to be able to talk about with any kind of clarity and confidence is the first one.
Well, I saw the first 2 that we're going to talk about, but I saw them years ago. So it's going to be a lot of going from memory. And then I recently watched the 2015 one because I had not seen it to such a degree when we were talking about making this and you mentioned who the villain was and what he was in that. So I have seen the 3 of these, which is very odd for us to do a movie episode where I actually have seen the movies.
I hope John's seen none of them. That would be perfect.
It would be. John, have you any of these have you not seen?
I mean, I have seen all of them.
Oh, there you go.
That's story checks out.
So
Seems pretty accurate.
before we dive into it, there's a long and storied history of the Fantastic Four's attempts to get on the silver screen. Like I said, they were the first family of Marvel to the point that many people believe that the characters were based off of the creators. That Mr. Fantastic was basically Stan Lee in a lot of his approach, and the Jack Kirby was very much the Thing and whatnot. But there was a lot of care and love put into the Fantastic Four, which is really funny when you think about how the MCU for the last 20-ish years, there's really been no mention or focus of the Fantastic Four up until recently.
Yeah, they really couldn't give a fuck, which
Couldn't.
is astounding. Because, like you said, the Fantastic Four were like the linchpin for a long time of Marvel. They were like the big, like you could always rely on them, always, quality comics. And then for some reason they just didn't translate to the film very well.
The first like 100 issues of the Fantastic Four as well, like Stanley and Jack Kirby, were basically introducing all the like familiar foundations of the like shared Marvel universe as well. Like so many of the building blocks that everything else got built on were laid down in those first 100 issues. So yeah, like it's really impossible to state how important they were to like Marvel as like a comic book company, really, especially in those early days when they were getting back into superhero comics. Like without the Fantastic Four, there would be no Marvel as we know it today.
It's true.
Yeah.
So, the Fantastic Four's attempt to get in movies starts back in 1983 with German producer Bernd Eichinger, who met with Stanley at his home in Los Angeles to explore obtaining an option for a movie based on the Fantastic Four. The option was not available until 3 years later when Eichinger's Constantin Film Company obtained it from Marvel Comics for a price the producer called, quote, not enormous, and has been estimated to be $250,000. Warner Brothers and Columbia Pictures were interested, but were cautious of Eisinger's 40 to 45 billion or $1 million budget. With an option scheduled to expire on December 31st, 1992, Eisinger asked Marvel for an extension because, as John will probably speak to at greater length at some point, when you get the rights to make a movie, you actually have to make the movie at some point. And around this time, um, Brad had the option to make a Fantastic Four movie for about 8 years and hadn't come close to starting one. So, with when Marvel did not agree to give him an extension, he decided that the only way he could retain his option was by producing a low budget Fantastic Four film, reasoning in an interview in 2005, quote, they didn't say I had to make a big movie. So in 1992, he approached the man, the myth, the legend, that is Roger Corman, with the idea of making a film for $5 million to keep the rights, which eventually decided to bring it down to a budget of $1 million. We will be discussing Roger Corman's Fantastic Four movie at greater length at another time.
I'd love to watch that film someday.
I would love it as well.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be fun?
Marvel Comics, along with Avi Arad and a close friend Ralph Winter, paid in exchange for the film's negative, so 20th Century Fox could go ahead with a big budget adaptation as well as a possible spin off film starring the Silver Surfer in 1998. Fox hired Chris Columbus to write and direct the Fantastic Four movie in 1995. Chris Columbus, famous for many, many movies. The ones always come off the top of my head are the Home Alone movies. John, is there any other like Chris Columbus movies you
Hmm.
can think of immediately?
I think he was involved in at least the very first Harry Potter movie, maybe a couple more.
Okay. But Chris Columbus developed a screenplay with Michael France, but decided to step down as director and focus on producing a Fantastic Four under his 1492 Pictures company. Peter Siegel was hired to direct in April of 1997, but was replaced by Sam Wiseman at the end of the year. Fox brought in Sam Hamm to rewrite the script in April of 1998, an attempt to lower the budget, which was projected at that point to be $165 million. In February 1999, with development taking longer than expected, Eisinger and Fox signed a deal with Marvel to extend the control of the film rights for another 2 years with a summer 2001 release planned and hiring Raja Gosnell to direct. However, Gosnell decided to do Scooby-Doo instead and dropped out in October of 2000. So now we're in the 2000s. It has been 15 years of trying to make this movie. In April 2001, Peyton Reed signed on to direct Fantastic Four, and Mark Frost was brought on board to do another rewrite. Reed departed the project in 2003, explaining in a 2015 interview, quote, "I developed it for the better part of a year with 3 different sets of writers, but it became very clear after a while that Fox had a very different movie in mind, and they were also chasing a release date, so we ended up parting company." Reed's version was described as being influenced by The Beatles' A Hard Day's Night in 1964, from 1964. Reed would later reuse this idea for Marvel Cinematic Universe's Ant-Man and the Wasp's Quantumania. Mads Mikkelsen apparently auditioned for the role of Reed Richards originally, but Ion Grafad was cast instead. He recalled the auditioning as, quote, "humiliating." Andrew Walker auditioned for the role of Johnny Storm, which eventually went to Chris Evans. Other actors that joined the film were Jessica Alba as Sue Storm, Chris Evans, Johnny Storm, Michael Chiklis as Ben Grimm, and Julian McMahon as Dr. Victor Von Doom. Sean Astin was one of the candidates to direct the movie. His reasoning for wanting to direct it, despite never having directed a movie before and not being familiar with the comics anyway, was that he wanted to step up in filmmaking and felt Fantastic Four would allow him to leave a mark. Despite not getting the job, Tom Rothman was impressed with his determination and hoped to work with him on a future project. Robert Downey Jr. was also originally considered for the role of Doctor Doom back then as well, but he would be later to be cast as the character in the MCU, where we will see him in 2026. Sean Astin also apparently wanted Christina Aguilera to play Sue Storm. That would have also been a very different movie if you know your Christina Aguilera in 2005 history. So, Tim Story was signed on to direct in April of 2004 after Fox was impressed with his early cut of Taxi in 2004, and him being a fan of the comics. Simon Kinberg wrote uncredited drafts for the script, and after seeing The Incredibles, Story decided to make a significant script change and add more special effects to avoid similarities, and that's where we finally get to 2005's Fantastic Four.
So they added more special effects? My God. Uh-oh.
You have to remember, this is 2005 special effects.
Oh, I remember.
So they started showing teaser trailers during Elektra and Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So that's pretty telling. I mean, they obviously had very big hopes for the movie, of course. But Fantastic Four was moved to from July 1st to July 8th to avoid competition with Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds, which I don't know if you've ever seen Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds, completely forgettable movie. So this is basically like a race between two tortoises, if that was the idea of trying to avoid that. But anyway, Fantastic Four. I have seen it. John has seen it. Dylan, you have most recently seen it by the sound of it. Unless John has watched it in the last 2 hours.
No, I last watched it 2 years ago, so
John's watching it right now while we're talking.
Oh, how's it going?
It's on the bit where they cause havoc on the Brooklyn Bridge and then save the day because they're heroes.
I thought you were
even
gonna
though
tell me
they caused it all in the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, even though they caused a fucking problem on the bridge.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say that you were at the part where Jessica Alba's in her bra and panties for no reason.
There's a reason.
The matronly Sue Storm.
Is there?
The mom of the team. The best older sister anyone could ask for. Just bra and
Yeah.
panties. All
Good
right.
reason why.
So how do you guys want to tackle not Silver Surfer. How do you want to tackle Fantastic Four?
Well, can I just read my notes out, because I haven't seen the other two films, so I will have zero impact on those two films. I'll have nothing to say about them.
Sure.
But I will have something to say about this one. So, and John, you probably remember it pretty well, so you can help me out here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I haven't taken notes about the plot or anything. They're just general notes about what I thought. So I'm going to try to recall a lot of stuff. But the first thing that really stood out to me, and I wrote this in my notes a bunch of times, was that, well, first of all, I said it's interesting that they went with the idea of Reed Richards and Susan Storm having split up before the film. Like they were clearly a couple for the film, and then at the beginning of the film, there's like tension between them because Sue is going out with Doctor Doom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the way through these notes, I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't, because again, the Fantastic Four. One of the things about them is they're a group. They're a very, very good group, a good core of four people that have different personalities but work very well together. I thought it's interesting to right off the bat have it where two of those core people are at odds with each other, right?
Mm.
Remember this. This is going to come back a lot. I wrote it down a lot. That was weird. Another note I wrote down was there's a bit where Johnny Storm is on a motorbike and he's kissing a girl who's in a car and they're both driving down like a road together. Yes, this is true. While Velvet Revolver plays in the background, and I'm like, this really is
Mm-hmm.
justified.
Johnny's wearing an
I'm
Affliction
pretty
t-shirt. He's got bootcut jeans on.
I'm pretty sure it was Velvet Revolver. I didn't double check. It sounded like Velvet Revolver.
It was either them or Audio
So
Slave if you're going 2005.
it was definitely not Audio Slave. It
You would
sounded like
be a
Scott
fan of Audio
Weiland.
Slave.
I would be a fan
Of
of
course.
all of these bands. But
Even including Velvet
Velvet
Revolver?
Revolver really Velvet Revolver fell off like really hard.
And
Like
quickly.
their first album was good. Yeah, they made two albums. The first one was good. The second one was, let's be honest, total dog
Not
shit.
so good.
And I suspect that song was off the second album because I didn't know what it was, but it sounded like Scott Weiland. So I'm gonna say that was Velvet Revolver. My next note says 20 minutes in, my impression is that this is bad. So that's not a good. The next note I have is I think it's an odd choice to have the Fantastic Four, who are well known for being one of the most tight knitted groups in Marvel history, spend most of the film fighting with each other. Right? This happens so much. I don't understand this. John, can you explain this? So, like I said at the beginning, Sue and Reed aren't a couple. Obviously, they were a couple. They aren't at the beginning. They will become a couple later on.
Mm-hmm.
They're fighting with each other. Johnny and Ben obviously have a bit of a antagonistical thing, but they're like
Mm-hmm.
they feel like they're getting at each other more than just like gentle jabs at each other. They feel like they don't like each other. Johnny's just like a very unlikable character all around. So he ends up rubbing everybody the wrong way. Everybody just ends up like they're fighting with each other. And like this is a really strange way to portray the Fantastic Four. The beginning of the film happens where Reed is going to Doctor Doom's company to get. I think they work together, and but Doom is like the head boss, and Reed works for them, and they're doing a space mission on behalf of
Mm-hmm.
Doom company. So the Fantastic Four and Victor Von Doom all go to space in his spaceship, and there is an issue with the calculations. There's a bit of a problem. Ben Grimm is outside the space ship in the space, and there's a bit where he's doing a mission, and Johnny Storm's like, "Oh no, it's about to explode! Just jump for it!" And Ben just like jumps, and then because it's space, he like jumps off the thing, and then just does this for a fucking long time, right? And the shit's exploding behind him, and he's just like this, right? And then Victor Von Doom's like, fuck that noise. I don't want that on me. He tries to like close the airlock, and Sue is like, I gotta save my friends who I don't like. I've made it clear I'm not a big fan of any of these people. And so she gets caught up with the rest of the Fantastic Four with the space radiation as it is. And whatever, they all of them come back down again. And they all develop symptoms in like all of the Johnny Storm bits are like really cringy. They're just real cringy, man. There's a bit where he's like flirting with a nurse, and then he's like, "Let's go snowboarding." Then they start snowboarding, but then he turns into fire, and then he like flies off the edge of a cliff. And is when she finds him, he's in this big melted hole in the snow, and he's like, "Want to join me in the hole?" And she's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "That
Now,
what the fuck?"
now, mind you, so real quick. This is why a lot of people, when they originally announced that Chris Evans was going to be Captain America, were like, "Ugh, I don't know," because this was for a
Well,
lot of
here's the thing.
people their first exposure to Chris Evans was this and not another teen movie.
To be fair, he's very good at being
He's great in
annoying.
it. It's just crap material.
He's exactly the material across the board is woeful, right? It's very bad. It's a very weird way to tell a Fantastic Four story. I don't understand. So at some point, the Fantastic Four realize they have powers and they try to like figure out what's going on with them. At the same time, Doctor Doom is showing a lot of he's Victor Von Doom at the time, but he's showing a lot of problems himself, where he can like interact with metal and he can shoot like weird force
Lightning.
things out of his
Yeah.
palms.
Mm-hmm.
Part of his face that starts becoming metal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sure, right? That's what happens. You go to space. Katy Perry will attest to this. Go to space, body face turns into metal,
She's gonna
right?
turn into
So
that
I've written
Joanne
down.
Rivers robot from Spaceballs soon. We're just waiting for
Yeah,
it.
well, I've written down. I'm not a fan of whatever is happening with Doctor Doom.
Old Nip Tuck.
It was just weird. It's just I didn't like that whole. He seemed like a good actor, but not the right guy. And
Yeah.
also
You
that
think Nip Tuck was a good actor? That's surprising.
Well, I mean,
seemed he's not good in this, right? But a lot of the shit he has to work with
I
is
think the
awful.
only thing he was ever good in was Nip Tuck.
He might be the worst written character in the whole film. It's just it's real bad,
Well,
right?
okay, so real quick, if you want to dive into that a little bit, because this is going to be a thing with these movies, and the concern I think people have with Robert Downey Jr. playing the character in Doomsday. For some reason, Victor Von Doom is a character that movies are terrified of. And I understand he's kind of outlandish. He's a guy in a walking suit of armor that is a dictator of a country where the people love him despite being a dictator. And it is very comic book. But for some reason in every one of these adaptations, they are afraid to embrace the absurdity that is Victor Von Doom. And I think this is an
mm-hmm.
example of it. Because it's like, well,
But on the
we
flip,
have to tie him closer to the origins of the character. Because that's something all three of these movies have in common is the idea that Victor Von Doom was with them when they went to space, which is not what happened in the comics.
right?
It happened
Victor,
in the Ultimate comics, but
ugh,
yeah, not the mainstream.
old Miller.
No,
But no, because
Mm-hmm.
like the mainstream like Fantastic Four, the origin was Victor Von Doom was college roommates with Reed Richards and got expelled because he was experimenting on, dangerous things. Like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the tie-in.
right, and you can tell that story like really well. And I don't know why people don't like this. This didn't work. None of this worked,
None of it works.
and
As we will talk about with
no,
the other two movies, it does not work, period.
well, Doctor Doom, I would say possibly one of the worst written characters in the film, and that says a lot.
Yes.
Like he keeps showing up, and he's like this businessman. He's trying to appease other people, but he starts like going mad with power or whatever, and he kills a bunch of people. It's hard to get. It's really hard to get your head around exactly what the motivations or the end game is. There's a bit where Benjamin, the Thing, is in a bar and he's like, "Oh, I can't hold the glass because my big rock hands crush the glass. So how am I supposed to get pissed now?" A blind lady notices that he crushes the glass or whatever, and she has a little, one of the little retractable sticks to be fully blind people sticks.
Yeah,
So that's how you know
Mhm.
she's blind. That's how you know she's blind, because
Should
she
have big
has one of the
sunglasses.
sticks, right? And one of my notes was later on she gets up and like touches Ben's face in like a really not cool scene. It's just weird. And then she goes, "Oh, I'll see you around sometime." And then she walks out of the bar without using the stick. I'm like, guys,
Ugh.
she's
So
blind.
we have
It's
we
a
have
but
we got a lot of movies to get through real quick. I don't because I
I'm
know
gonna
we could
try to
probably
get through
spend
this
way
as
too
quick as
long.
I can. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that real quick because we mentioned it. I think Michael Chiklis, was not a fan of him in the role of the Thing. He felt like he was way older than everyone else. Everybody's supposed to be
Yeah.
like peers, and he just felt like everybody's dad, like everyone's grumpy dad that
Well,
was on set.
the issue with him was his character again was fucking. It just he was a miserable man from like most. I'll get to this. I'll get
Okay,
to this. Okay. So after this, Ben's very depressed because he's a Thing and he wants to be human again, even though the blind lady just said that she
she's
liked
into
him.
it.
He's like, not good enough. I want to be able to hold a cup again. So, Doctor Doom is like, I need to dismantle the Fantastic Four one by one, and I'm going to start with Ben Grimm. So he finds him at a diner, and he starts to like schmooze with the Thing. The two notes I have about this are: number one, whenever Ben and Doom are talking in the cafe, Ben doesn't seem to notice that Doctor Doom has a bunch of like weird metal shit on his face. Like that. This is a normal conversation you guys are having. You didn't think that was weird. Second of all, Doctor Doom has been a total dick to Ben all the way through this film.
Yeah,
Like just a miserable man. And now he comes and sits beside him and says, "Hey, do you think maybe your best friend in the whole world, who you, up to this point you've shown you're his best friend and you hate me? Do you think that Reed's not really looking after you the way he should be?" And Ben's like, "Yeah, you're right, man that I don't trust and have established up to this point that I do not trust you because you don't like me. I'm going to listen to you." And that turns into a big part of the film because then Ben goes to see Sue and Reed, who have made up and are getting together again, and he's like, "Oh, you guys are being lovey-dovey instead of working on my condition. Fuck you!" And then they fight again, and then he sees Johnny Storm and he fights with him, and I'm like, again, you have the Fantastic Four fighting with each other. Why is this happening? I don't understand. So that bit really confused me. Like that's bad writing. It just out of nowhere go, this guy that you don't trust, now you trust him. That guy you do trust, you don't trust him. This sucks. I don't fully understand Doctor Doom's big plan. I wrote that down because I don't really know the motivation, the purpose, the plot. He tries to get
Mhm.
Doctor Doom has made a replica of the uh, the accident that happened in space because they figure if we can reverse the space whatever that happened, then we can go back to being normal. And Doctor Doom is funding this, so at some point he gets the Thing to go inside the machine because he's like, if you go inside the machine, I can reverse the polarity and you'll come out a human. And Doctor Doom does this by accelerating the power in it with his hand because he can do that. And the door opens and the Thing comes out and he's a human again. And he's like, "Thanks, Doctor Doom, for giving me what I wanted. This is all I've talked about this whole fucking film. This is what I wanted." And then, so then obviously because the Thing has now got what he wanted, he's like, "Oh, maybe I didn't want this after all. I hope you're not mean to Reed Richards, the man who I just fucking beat up and hate now." So then Doctor Doom finds Reed Richards and is like, "I'm gonna beat you up because I don't like you either." And the Thing is like, "Oh, now I'm having second thoughts. Maybe I should have been nice to Reed all along." Again, shitty writing. It's just like it's happening too quickly. At some point
Mm.
during this, Doom puts the mask on, right? So he has the mask and the hood, and he's talking with the robot voice. No reason.
Mhm.
They don't explain that the reason he put in the comics he puts the mask on because he's incredibly vain. They don't explain that in the film. He just has a mask and he puts it on, and then he has the hood and he's Doctor Doom, and you're like, what the? Why? Why has that happened? So then Doom like tries to separate the Fantastic Four, and he gets rid of he freezes Mr. Fantastic. Somehow he just had a big freezer, I guess. Don't worry about it. He freezes Mr. Fantastic. He gets rid of Johnny Storm. He flies off after a ballistic missile. And then Sue is like, we gotta save Reed. They don't know what's wrong with him. They just go, we gotta save him. And the Thing is like, guess they better go back in the machine and turn back into a big rock monster to save the guy that he hated like 10 minutes ago. So angry about this. So then Doom is like fighting Reed and Sue, and then the Thing appears and he punches Doctor Doom, and then he says, "Oh, I've been waiting to do that." And I'm like, "How long have you been waiting to do that? He gave you everything you wanted." I'm so confused about this whole fucking thing. Like, you've been waiting 10 minutes to punch him? What do you mean? So angry about this. Just bad writing. So then they get to a bit where they're fighting out in the street, right? And Doom is like overpowered a bunch of people, and he's about to hit the Thing like a big like metal post, right? About to like jab it in his head, and then Mr. Fantastic's behind Doctor Doom. He's like, "Don't do it, Doom," and Doctor Doom's like, "Oh, hey, Mr. Fantastic, just wait a second till I kill your friend right here." And he goes to jab the Thing with the Thing with the
thing with
jab
the
the Thing with the Thing. The Thing with the big metal pole, but he stopped because of the force field in front of him by Sue Storm. And I'm like, don't you think the guy with the fucking stretchy powers could have like stretched over there and picked the pole up? Mr. Fantastic was just watching Doctor Doom stab his friend in the head. He didn't attempt to. One of the notes was like, for a guy with stretchy powers, Mr. Fantastic is standing around and letting stuff happen without doing anything about it. Madness. They do this bit where like they encase Doctor Doom in like a big fiery tornado that is really, really big in the middle of the street. And I'm like, how big are the streets? How big are the streets where this giant thing happens and there's no like collateral damage to anything? The buildings don't fall apart. Like, if you see how big it is compared to everything else, you're like, no street in America is that big. I know everything's big in America. It's not that big. Ridiculous. So what happens after that? Doctor Doom with his big metal armor gets melted because that's what happens in a big inferno. And then Doom's like, "You think that's going to stop me? Because it should." I don't know. And then Mr. Fantastic's like, "No, that's not going to stop you. This will." And then the Thing gets a fire hydrant and squirts water over him. And so the hot metal cools down and he like freezes in place, right? So he's dead. He's definitely dead. We can all agree that combination of things.
I mean, I feel like getting molten metal, like your metal mask melting onto you would, if not kill you, severely take you out of the fight.
But as we've already established, he had little metal bits in his head. Anyway, he was becoming metal.
If it's like molten metal, like that's gonna just absolutely cook everything else underneath it. If he has metal skin and he gets hot, theoretically, that's gonna cook the inside of you. You become a giant oven.
Correct. If he's got metal skin, that he is going to melt that as well. He's just all going to melt. But instead of that, they go, "That's not going to stop me." So then they squirt water on him, and he just turns into like a statue, which again would kill you. Because now you can't breathe. You're all just like fucking whatever. So they did that, and then they all go back to like, "Oh, now we're the Fantastic Four. We're best friends again." All, fun stuff. And then they put Doctor Doom on like a container in a ship, and they ship him off to Latveria. The Fantastic Four don't do that. People that work for Doctor Doom's company took him away from this crime scene
Yeah.
and put him on a boat. And I'm like, you guys just let that happen? Fantastic Four were like, don't worry, that guy that almost killed us in this entire city, yeah, you take him. None of our business. And then that's the end of the film. That's
So,
the end.
so John, go ahead and hit us with your 2 cents on that.
Well, I think Dan sort of touched on it there, but like as an origin, it's a bit rushed. They are trying to like do too much and not give it enough time to breathe. So we basically join, yeah, like Dan said, like the characters when they've kind of got this established past, and we're kind of left to sort of figure out how it all fits together. Then they quickly go up to space, and then as soon as they get the powers and come back to Earth, it's like, oh yeah, like quickly the Brooklyn Bridge incident happens, and they save the day, cleaning up the mess that they made in the first place. And then somehow they're big celebrities and heroes and stuff. And it's like, well, hang on, slow down, just give it a chance to breathe.
The thing on the bridge,
Um,
the thing is just sitting on the bridge, and then a guy's gonna commit suicide, and the thing is like, hey, don't do that. And the guy's like, what the fuck is this? And then the thing's trying to
Very real
calm him
reaction.
down. The guy jumps, like, he falls, like, onto the bridge with the cars and stuff. So the thing jumps onto the bridge after him and just, like, destroys a fucking truck that's coming towards him. So they're the ones that caused this whole problem. And then
Yep.
they solve it. But it just escalates. Like, all this shit just starts happening. And then they, like, solve the problem. And then everyone's like, oh, thanks for saving us. Or, like, saving us from themselves?
Exactly.
What do you mean?
So the problem
There's
is
a
that,
severe lack of heroic in this
yeah,
movie.
you remember we talked about this when we talked about Eternals, where it's like they were trying to introduce too many characters in one movie. This movie would have
Mm.
been significantly better if they had focused primarily on, if you're going to do this, Reed, Ben, and Victor. Sue can have some scenes, Johnny can have some scenes, but if this is your source of conflict, or these three personalities clashing, that should be your priority. And there was a lot of just Johnny Storm dicking around. Honestly, there's way too much dicking around in this movie in general.
It's a lot.
There's a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
characters just dicking around.
Yes. There is a lot of Johnny Storm dicking around. I will say this. I think if you are going to do a film like that, you can easily work Sue Storm in there with that kind of Reed, Sue, Doom kind of triangle. That can, because obviously there's issues
True.
between Reed and Doom with Sue in the middle. The way that this film did it was not the way you should do it, but I
Yeah,
think it could be done
it
in a
could be,
better
but again, if you're
better
gonna
film.
just focus, because this is like 2005, the idea of like having a 3-hour superhero movie is not here. So you have a
Mm-hmm.
time constraint. I feel like you just focus on those three characters, and you would have had a salvageable movie. You don't need to have Sue Storm being, messing around with Victor in the beginning of the movie, because in the
No.
comics, like Reed and Sue are already an item when they go up to space. So like you don't
Right.
you don't have to do all of that shit. Like you don't have to
No.
introduce everything from square one. You can trust the audience to go in with, oh, here's Sue. She's involved with Reed. You can even hint that she used to have something with Victor if you want to go that route. But again, I really hate the fact that they based these two movies in particular off the Ultimate Universe, and we'll talk about that probably a lot more with Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Yeah. Anyway, it's not a good film. So I would imagine that the second one's probably not a good film either. For
So
the record, when I
But
went to try to watch this film, it had like a 5.7% out of 10, I guess. So there was a 50, let's say 57%
well,
rating
I can
yeah,
tell
from the
I gave
you.
people.
it 2.5 on my letterboxd.
Yeah.
So, real quick, box office wise, this movie did make $333 million. Rotten Tomatoes, it comes in at 27%. Yep. So
Ooh.
not critically well done. So this movie was followed up by 2007's Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. So obviously, the movie did enough numbers that Fox went ahead and greenlit a sequel to it, and they decided they were going to try to tackle um fucking Silver Surfer and Galactus as well. Of course,
Yeah.
we can't be too far gone without Victor Von Doom showing his face, so Nip Tuck's back, and yeah, movie starts off with Reed and Sue getting married because the last movie ended with them getting engaged. Their wedding gets interrupted by a unidentified flying object that is approaching New York City, which resolves probably I think the best scene in the whole movie, which is the Human Torch Silver Surfer chase scene. Because there is the special effects are dated, but they are pretty interesting with showing how the Silver Surfer interacts with his board.
Hmm.
I especially the moment where he like stops Johnny and basically just turns off his power. So
Yeah.
pretty good scene, and that's where they learn about the cosmic energy of the Silver Surfer and his mission there to basically warn them of the approach of Galactus because he is there to scout planets for him to consume. That leads the Fantastic Four to working with Victor Von Doom because the world has to unite, and Victor is representing Latveria. And he got out of his living statue because the Silver Surfer happened to be flying by. So,
Well, that's all the explanation I need.
yep, that's all the explanation you get.
Cosmic baby.
Good enough.
But yeah, he gets Silver Surfer gets captured in Siberia. He gets tortured. He ends up forming a weird kind of connection with Susan Storm, where he learns about Galactus and that he's stuck being his servant to keep his planet from being destroyed. Doctor Doom steals his surfboard and hooks it up to a machine so that he gets the power cosmic. And Galactus shows up. Uh, Invisible Woman dies somehow. I can't even remember. John, how does she die?
I believe she gets stabbed by Doctor Doom.
What a dick.
What? So the big fucking villain is like Galactus, and they're like, well, Doctor Doom will stab one of the Fantastic Four. The
Stabs
one who
her.
can make her own force field.
Stabs her with a metal spear made from cosmic energy, which, as we saw with Johnny Storm, the cosmic energy has the ability to turn off their powers. So, sounds like it's probably how that worked.
Okay. Okay, I'll give you that one.
They set it up.
They actually
They
wrote
set it
something
up with the
that
Human
makes
Torch
sense.
earlier. They followed through with it. Chekhov's cosmic energy.
Okay. I'll take. I mean, it's not often to do that, but fair enough.
Silver Surfer uses the power of friendship and a surfboard to bring Sue back to life, which is nice.
Wait. Say it again.
Brings her back to life with the power of his surfboard
And friendship.
and friendship. That's why I assume it is, because they had to have that bond where she got into his head and they talked about why he works for Galactus.
Okay. So if you want to bring somebody back from the dead, A, surfboard, B, friendship.
Yep.
Yep.
And why I completely forgot, there's like a lot of comedy scenes where Johnny, because after his encounter with the Silver Surfer, his powers become less reliable, and he starts like showing signs of having everyone else's powers. So he kind of becomes Super Skrull.
No, well, they sort of end up switching powers with each other. If he touches one of them, he'll take their power, and they'll take his power.
That's right. That's right.
What?
Because we have to get another scene with Michael Chiklis not in the Thing costume.
Exactly. Yes.
So anyway, Silver Surfer fixes that.
Wait, does that mean that, like, Chris Evans is all like thinged up?
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a scene where he gets all thinged up. He gets invisible powers. He gets
Okay.
Silver Surfer heals him. They fly and they blow up Galactus. Reed and Susan get married. Mid-credit, there's a dead Silver Surfer floating through space, and his eyes opened, and he's back to life. And then that doesn't go anywhere because they don't make any other movies.
Good.
John, I tried to hit the highlights. Did I miss anything that you would consider crucial?
I mean, you hit pretty much all the major beats of the story there.
Which, by the way,
Was this?
we do want to bring up real quick. Doug Jones did all the motion capture for Silver Surfer, and Doug Jones is fucking phenomenal. We love Doug Jones here. Lawrence Fishburne did his voice.
Yes.
Was this the film? Because I haven't seen this film or the one after this, but I know that in one of these films, Galactus is like a cloud.
Yep.
Yep.
This
Is it this one?
This is Ultimate Fantastic
Oh, yes.
Four. This is what I was referring to. In Ultimate Fantastic Four, Galactus is a giant cloud in space.
Okay.
There's a scene where the cloud has like lightning going on inside of it, and you see the outline of the Galactus helmet inside of the cloud, but that's all you see. Because if I'm gonna guess, probably Mark Miller, being the barrel of fun that he is, thought that having a giant man who ate planets was too silly, and that we needed to have a giant cloud instead.
I don't think a cloud that eats planets is sillier than a humanoid
I will
that
say
eats planets.
it is a pretty interesting visual in some scenes. The giant space cloud approaching Earth and completely like looking like it's gonna engulf it. That looks pretty cool. But if you strip back and you know what Galactus is, and you go, "That's Galactus, huh?" It's not exciting.
No, didn't seem like it.
But yeah, no, they brought back Doom. Because we have to have Doom, and he was a bait and switch villain. But I mean, it was like one of those things like you knew he was going to turn on him. Like, why wouldn't he? So it almost felt pointless. But
Right.
they needed
They
a
established a
physical
lot first.
they needed a physical enemy to fight, because they were going to establish that the Silver Surfer is an all right guy, and Galactus is a giant cloud. They needed to have a physical fight scene with somebody that they can make toys of.
To their credit, I don't think it's an unbelievable thing to have an Earth-threatening occurrence that would cause the Fantastic Four to have to team up with Doctor Doom, only for Doctor Doom to turn on them for his own benefit. That is the most believable thing I've heard in these two films.
Well, like the plot of this movie is basically taking not just elements from the Ultimate Fantastic Four, but from like Galactus's first like appearances in the mainstream comics, like Fantastic Four 48 to 50, with like where the Silver Surfer shows up and kind of heralds Galactus's arrival, and then the Fantastic Four have to stop him. And then there's like another Galactus story which came a little bit afterwards, 57 to 60 in the comic books, where Doctor Doom steals the Silver Surfer's powers, and then kind of uses them to, try and take over the world. So, like, this, I mean, I'd like the fact that it kind of took some inspiration from the comics here and kind of melded those two stories together. And I think it ended up making, especially because they didn't have to worry about like origins and stuff anymore.
Yeah.
It made this movie way more palatable than the first one. Like, it doesn't feel as rushed and as like haphazard. There seems to be more of a obvious story which is going on, whereas like Doctor Doom in that first movie, who knows what his grand scheme was, because he sure didn't.
No.
So
it sounded
yeah,
like it was just bad revenge.
Yeah,
but
basically.
Like, what's he getting revenge for? Like, I don't.
Well, because
the
the experiment failed. That when they went up to space, the experiment failed.
Cost
And apparently
his
it was bad
company.
publicity.
Yeah.
Well, like if you see the film, it doesn't. None of it comes across very well. But regardless of that, John, you said you give the first film 2.5 stars.
Yep.
What did you give the second one?
I gave this one 3 stars.
Okay, so half a star better.
I would say that's not incorrect.
You said, Corey, you said this had like the first one had like, what was it, 27% Rotten Tomatoes. Do you know what this second one had?
Well, so it made $301 million, so $32 million less than the first movie did, which isn't uncommon with sequels to see a variance in that. But it did 10% higher. It got 37%.
Even 37%, not a good score for a film.
No, but I mean it does suggest this was a more focused film. Like they weren't all over the place. They had a central plot line they followed. So it is of the two, I will tell you it is the better of the two. There's
Okay.
not
Be
as
hard
much
to
dicking
not be
around.
better.
The dicking around that comes in this one is the Johnny Storm accidentally swapping powers with people bit.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the
I mean, it would be
primary
hard
dicking
to
around
be a worse
spots.
film than the first one. The first one's pretty bad.
Oh boy.
You
Well,
know?
you set us up perfectly because we're going to talk about
Mhm.
2015's Fantastic Four.
For the record, I was in two minds. Should I have watched that one or the one I watched? Because I heard that the one I watched was bad, but I also heard the 2015 one was very bad as well. I'm like, I don't have time to watch all these bad films.
So
You know, I'm a busy guy.
so real quick, this is pretty much what happens. So they were going to Fox announced they were going to reboot the film, the franchise in 2009. So 2 years after
Oh,
Rise of the Fantastic Four, they were like, we got to restart it because at that point, Iron Man came out and and just ate everybody's lunch.
yeah.
So they fired not fired. They hired Josh Trank to come in and develop the film and direct.
Frank?
Josh Trank, yes. John, what is
Okay.
Josh Trank known for?
Well, he kind of came on the scene after directing Chronicle, which was like a low budget found footage superhero movie where a bunch of kids get powers.
Hmm.
Oh, I think
So
I've seen that.
yeah, he felt like, oh, he could be a good fit for this because he's kind of dabbled in this genre before and done so on a low budget but with high quality. So you'd think with
Yeah.
a bigger budget, maybe that would
The
increase the
quality would be
quality.
higher.
All right, so
Oh dear.
So he
Heck,
was
go the
hired
other
to
way.
direct in July of 2012, and the main characters were all cast in January of 2014. Principal photography started in May of 2014 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and lasted for 2 months. Unsatisfied with the original cut, Fox demanded reshoots, which took place in January of 2015. The movie premiered August 4th of 2015 in New York City, and then was wider released in August 7th. To give you an idea of how that went, this was considered a box office bomb. So not only did it perform less than the 2005 2007 Fantastic Four, it also reviewed less than the 2005 2007 Fantastic Four.
What?
To kind of give you an idea, also, we'll jump into it. They received several Golden Raspberry Awards. The Raspberries, the award ceremony for worst movies in a given year. But they received for worst director and worst picture. And Trank voiced his displeasure with the final film, which he attributed to studio interference, which is not uncommon when you think about Fox. So, John, do you want to give us a quick rundown of 2015's Fantastic Four?
Sure thing. So basically, Reed is like a smart kid out of high school or college, whatever it is. He's best buddies with Ben Grimm, and then he gets recruited into this sort of think tank for promising young minds called the Baxter Foundation, where he meets with uh, Stu Storm, Johnny Storm, and Victor Von Doom, who are all part of the program, working under Stu and Johnny's dad, Franklin Storm. And together they're all working on this project to create like a quantum gate to another dimension. I don't know why, but it's science. They just do it because it's there to be done. So they managed to, get this gate working, and the five of them, Stu, Johnny, Ben, Reed, and Victor decide to go on a mission through the gate to see what's on the other side. And they end up in a place which gets called Planet Zero, which is like this weird kind of shifting world of like dangerous energy, I guess. And they, like that's where they get hit with the cosmic powers. And Victor gets left behind, seemingly dead, whereas the others manage to escape back to Earth. But now they've all got their familiar powers. And then basically the movie just decides, okay, well, this has happened, but now we're going to just jump forward a whole year where Reed has been on the run, and the rest of the team have been working with the military. And like the military are trying to capture Reed and try and bring him back in. And with the help of, Stu, Johnny, and Ben,
Can I
they
stop
managed
for
to
just
do
one
that.
moment, John?
Mm-hmm.
Dylan, your facial expressions right now is indication you watched the wrong one if you were going to pick one to watch.
I feel very confused.
Continue, John.
Oh boy. It doesn't get any more clear as it goes along. But so yeah, they bring in Reed, and rather than throw him in jail or experiment him on or whatever, he gets drafted onto this team because the military apparently want to head back to Planet Zero for some reason. So yeah, he basically helps them rebuild the quantum gate, and they head off to Planet Zero with a military team. But they run into Doctor Doom, who, because of the cosmic energy and shit that hit him previously, he's now been fused into his like spacesuit, and uh, he just looks like a plastic melted action figure, basically. Um, he has like some telekinetic powers, and I guess he wants to protect his newfound home from Earth and like
That's fair
go
enough,
in.
right?
I
I think it's
guess,
fair enough.
but so to protect his planet, he decides he's going to destroy Earth. So
Fair enough. I mean, with time after 2015, we've seen what we've done to it. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe he was right to fucking kill it in 2015.
I guess, but you know, he opens up a portal because every good superhero movie needs a gigantic portal which like shoots up into the sky.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the Fantastic Four show up and stop him. Easy peasy. Punch him into the portal. He gets killed or disintegrates because why not? And
Yeah.
then they go back home, and
So
that's
Wait,
the end
wait,
of the
wait, wait,
movie.
wait. So he had the portal, and he sent the portal up into the space because the portal was going to like transport stuff from one place to the other.
Well, fuck knows. I think it was just gonna transport like maybe disintegrating energy to Earth. Maybe that
Okay,
was it.
so if he goes through
So
the
then,
portal, then he disintegrates.
yeah, that makes. Well, I was gonna say
Okay,
it makes sense. It doesn't make sense, but
let's
it's an explanation.
yeah, let's assume that that is the explanation. That is the official one. I mean, I feel like we've explained that film more than they have, but let's just run with that as the official. Like, okay, that makes more sense than just
so
saying
he gets
Doom opened up a portal,
he
and then
gets
he went into the
punched
portal and he died.
he gets punched into the energy beam that is creating the portal. So he's getting
Oh,
There you
so
go.
he's not into the portal itself, but into the machine that's creating the portal. That I guess the raw energy needed to do such a thing is potent enough to rip him into pieces. Um,
that's
Mm-hmm.
how it
but yeah, it looks like
works.
the reason he made the portal is the portal starts to basically eat the Earth. So he's basically just going to he created a giant portal vacuum cleaner and was just sucking it up, old Henry Hoover style.
Makes sense.
Sure.
So that is
Yep.
now my visual is that little red vacuum cleaner just consuming chunks of the earth.
That would have made a better film.
Yeah.
So John, you were wrapping it up.
Yeah, that's basically the end. They kill Doom and then head back home, and the end.
The group is rewarded by the U.S. military for their heroics by being given a new base of operations known as Central City to study their abilities without government interference. They decide to use their powers to help people and adopt the mantle of the Fantastic Four. Those are the last couple sentences on the Wikipedia entry.
What was the cast for that one?
Well, we had Miles
So
Teller
we
as
had
Reed Richards slash Mr. Fantastic.
Okay.
We know him from Whiplash. Is that film, John?
mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm. That movie that
Mhm.
caused a lot of controversy because people were upset that the Human Torch was black.
Doesn't make a difference.
Kate Mara as Sue Storm. So instead of being biological brother and sister, they were now adopted brother and sister. And
That's fair enough.
Jamie Bell as Ben Grimm.
I don't know who that is.
Billy Elliot.
What? Billy Elliot's a fucking thing?
Yeah.
There you go.
What?
And Toby Kebbell as Victor Von Doom.
I don't know who that is. Is that Billy as well?
Maybe.
Probably at some point he played Billy Elliot. Everybody's played Billy Elliot at some point in their life.
Yeah, yeah. It's the new James Bond.
There you go.
Yeah, we've all done it. Weird.
But yeah, so that is the 2015 Fantastic Four, and as John described it, here's some things that the 2015 Fantastic Four did not have that the Fantastic Four traditionally has. Color, for one. It is the most drab movie you'll ever watch. Everything is grays, blacks, and gunmetal.
Mm-hmm.
There's no color at all in this movie. Um, family dynamics, not really there. they don't seem to
Nope.
really have any chemistry between themselves. Um, Victor Von Doom's costume arguably worse than the 2005 2007 because he just looks like he's covered in aluminum foil
Yeah.
because it's like supposed
That's
to
a
be his
shame.
melted spacesuit on him. Instead of having like melted like metal skin, he's just like composed of melted spacesuit. So,
But
Dylan,
visually, you can't even tell. It's just sort of like a big blurry mush.
yeah, it looks
It
terrible. It
looks
has no
so shit.
form. It has no shape. It's like a blob, a
No.
melted blob. Um, so John, what did you give this on your letterbox?
Oh, I gave this the lowest possible score of half a star. It's an unmitigated disaster of a movie. Just like everything about it is so bad. The pacing, the tone, the script, the fucking costume design, the CG,
Yeah,
like
it's
it's just bad all over.
it feels like they were trying to make a their version of like the Dark Knight of like let's have a
Mm,
dark and kind of grim version of the Fantastic Four, where it's like the Fantastic Four, the kitschiest superhero movie ever. And like that's the one thing about the Marvel, version that's coming out next week that I think is probably its biggest perk is that it has completely embraced that 1960s kitschy kind of campy aesthetic.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so box office wise, 2005's Fantastic Four did 333 million. Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer 301 million. This movie, Dylan, 167 million. About
Well,
half. About half. 2005's
not
Fantastic
good.
Four. 2005's Fantastic Four Rotten Tomatoes 27%. Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer 37%. This version 2015 9.
I really wish it had been 7%. Just to like,
Keep the consistency.
in,
To
yeah,
give you
9%.
so Dylan, to kind of keep us straight here, I have this in the same spreadsheet that I have all the other movies we've talked about in the last 2 years or so. This did
Okay.
worse, Rotten Tomatoes wise, than Madam Web,
Right.
uh, by a lot. And I think Madam Web was so far. I can't remember what Craven the Hunter did, but Madam Web was the worst Rotten Tomato wise I think we'd seen or we discussed about at length. So this now takes the cake at 9%.
What did Madam Web have?
12. This was Madam Web was 12% better.
Madam Web was worse than the Fantastic Four film that I watched.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing, John. What? Okay, John, you give it like 2.5 stars. I guess because you've got you got 5 stars. It's like hard to because 2.5 stars is like average.
Yeah. There's things I like about the first movie. Like, I thought
Okay.
Michael Chiklis was pretty good as the Thing, and
Yes.
That's funny that we disagree
even
on
Chris
that.
Evans.
I thought they were
Well, I
all
mean, yeah,
fairly okay. The Fantastic Four were like, I honestly thought Johnny Storm was the best acted out of all of them.
yeah.
I thought that
Which
guy, like
which
that's
is
Johnny
telling
Storm. You know what I
considering
mean?
the
Like,
future. I don't know much else that the other three have done in comparison to Chris Evans, who then went on to be Captain America in like 50 movies.
well, that's the thing. What with the benefit of hindsight, you look back at it now and go, that's a good range that he could do an incredibly annoying jerk like um, Johnny Storm, and then like a very straight laced and serious and patriotic character like Captain America. There's two very different characters, and he played them both very well, very
Hmm.
well. I thought the main cast of that original one, they were all pretty good at what they did. The problem was they had a lot of shitty material.
Yeah.
Um, so that's fair enough. But I haven't
I would
seen this new
say
one to see.
I would say that if that's your opinion on that one, that's going to definitely be your opinion on this one, but to a worse degree because those,
Mm,
those four actors that are cast, Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan, Kate Mara, and was it Jamie Bell?
yeah.
Yeah,
Guy.
all of them very accomplished at other things they have done. That
Hmm.
movie's the material they have is absolutely rotten, and like I said, it just feels like the studio wanted to make an answer to like Dark Knight, and they absolutely picked the wrong source material and the wrong story, and yeah, just wrong all around. Because like the positive reviews for this movie that I have seen, the positive reviews are basically kind of pretentious people sounding. Where they're like, "Oh, the young actors did such an amazing job with the material that they were given." Unfortunately, the material was not very good.
Yeah. Well, that seems to be a theme.
Yes,
You know.
you
So,
can't put
but my
lipstick on a
point
pig.
was going to be that if well, you can, you shouldn't. But my point
Thank you
was
for. I was waiting for
that
you to respond to that. I appreciate that you did.
my point was going to be that after having watched that Fantastic Four film, I did not care for a lot of it, and I wouldn't have said that that was an average. I would have said that was below average for me. And I'm not like a snobby, but I've seen like 7 films, so it's not very good.
Yeah.
I guess John, because you've seen so many different films, that for you that probably is around about the average range because you've probably seen shit that's way worse than that,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But for me, I would not have made that a like 50% film, and for you to have said that that was like a half-star film, which what's that in percentage wise? That's like 10% or something. You
Yeah.
know, pretty
Yeah.
the average. Like that's to me, I can't even imagine that film. Do you know what I mean? I can't even because people ask me that a lot. They're like, well, you know, what's the worst film you've ever seen? And I'm like, I don't know if I could, you know. I think it was The Devil Inside. I think that's the name of that film. I saw this like awful horror film in the cinema, and the trailer made it look really good. And then I saw it in the cinema, and I got really annoyed because I'm like, I spent £7 on that. Like, cinema tickets are expensive,
True.
and I spent £7 on that. Like, what the fuck? And that was the only film that I remember like fucking hating and was this close to walking out on. But I'm like, I spent £7 on it. I'm gonna get my money's worth. I didn't. But like, other than that, I can't really think of like a film that I fucking think is like abysmally bad. And all of the feedback seems to be that this film is as close to abysmally bad as you can get.
Doesn't it make you want to watch it now just to see for yourself?
Yes, but this is what happened with Morbius. I was like, Morbius can't be that bad, and then I watched it, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
it can be.
well,
It can
I'm
be.
the idiot. I'm the idiot. I fell for it.
So they did
Uh,
not. So here's the thing with like superhero movies. I feel like they knew this was gonna be a bust. I feel like they had to have known it was gonna be a bust because with superhero
Hmm.
movies, traditionally they rush to put out toys and like some sort of a like fast food tie-in. I remember seeing like I think I told this before. I lived next door to a grocery store, and I went to the grocery store for months after that movie was in and out of the theater, and there were still like Fantastic Four branded like soda, and it was not like a big brand like Coca-Cola or Pepsi. They're like they couldn't even get like a big name soda sponsor to put their fucking logo on. So like I feel like they
what
had
was
to
the
have
brand?
known there were no toys that were made for this. I feel like they had to have known this was not going to go well.
What was the brand of cola that it was?
It's a great question. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, we
So,
give a shout out to this clearly failing soda company that sank all their money into the Fantastic Four film. And they lost it
Fantastic
all.
Four tie-in soda. Nope, that's for the most recent one. I want to look for 2015. I trust Mickey Mouse to know how to brand people. Crush soda.
Okay,
Crush orange,
are they
crush grape, crush strawberry, crush
uh,
raspberry, I want to say.
are
But
they
yeah.
now defunct?
No, they're still around. They're just cheap soda. Someone's trying to
But they
sell
took a
cans
hit
of it on
without.
eBay though, it looks like. Oh man,
Hey,
I
we
could
could
buy
get
four
some.
unopened cans of soda from a decade ago for $13.
We should do that. We'll drink them on the show.
We should.
Uh,
Yeah,
I feel like if
that'd
I
be
mailed
fun.
that to you guys, it would be considered chemical warfare.
Well,
I posted a
you
picture
know,
of the cans on our Discord chat, and you can see what the characters look like, Dylan.
yo, yo, look at those guys. Wow, Mister Fantastic looks like he's 7 years old.
Yep,
The thing looks great.
the thing looks pretty good. I mean, but that's
Yeah,
they went from a rubber suit on Michael Chiklis to computer generated.
thing looks
hmm
really good.
So obviously, making a Fantastic Four movie is a little more harder and a little more complicated than we thought it was going to be, right?
Evidently
Well, it
so.
seems that way.
So in a week, we will be able to go out and watch a new Fantastic Four movie and see if Disney and MCU can get it right. Now, mind you, the last MCU movie we talked about was Thunderbolts, and the discussion was like, wow, it was actually pretty good. Considered a flop in the theaters. Didn't make a lot of money, so
That's wild to me that they would consider that to be a flop because that
it
was a
did not
great
make a
film.
lot of
Mm.
money.
But sometimes in art, you don't need to make a lot of money to make a lot of impact.
I don't feel like Disney's been in the art business for quite some time.
I agree. I feel like they have lost whatever artistic spark they may have had a long time ago.
Long, long time ago. But so
Uh,
that's next week. However, we're going to be watching Fantastic Four next week. Um, if things still go according to plan, next week's episode, Dylan, you will finally get to watch Roger Corman's Fantastic Four, which we alluded to at the very beginning of this episode, talking about the history of the film franchise. It has a budget of $1 million. I'm not sure if you're familiar with who Roger Corman is, but I can give you a great rundown.
go for it.
Roger Corman is considered one of the greatest directors of all time because he's done hundreds of movies. Famously, most, if not all of them, without a budget. And was active for decades. I mean, the man did everything from creature features to giant monster movies to the Fantastic Four. There was not a budget too small for that man not to make a movie, as you'll see him make a big time superhero movie with $1 million in 1992.
Wow.
I
Doesn't
can't
that
wait to
set
talk
the
to you
scene
about it.
for?
Dylan, this is a movie that has a documentary about the making of the movie because very famously, the actors in it weren't really sure what was going on while they were filming.
I heard that they didn't know that it wasn't supposed to be like shelved. They thought that this was really going to be a big theatrical release.
Yep.
And they had no idea that this was just a way to keep the rights
Keep the
going and was
rights.
never supposed to be. Yeah. So I'm intrigued.
Yes, I think you should be. I think it's fun. And if we do next week's episode and we're not talking about or watching Roger Corman's Fantastic Four, then you will know something has gone horribly wrong.
Yeah. We'll be talking about how nuclear fallout has irradiated all of our bones and skin.
Oh, I thought you were just going to want to talk
And
about Katy Perry and hot dogs again.
I think, dude, I mean, I'm going to say this right now. Well, I don't know how much more talking about Katy Perry we can do. However, I constantly surprise myself. So, would
well,
not be surprised if more is on the horizon.
something that's not a surprise is John watches a lot of movies. John, what's your movie count at so far for the year?
I am on 493.
Ooh, getting close to breaking 500 before the middle point of the year.
Yeah,
Dylan.
not far away.
Oh, actually, John,
Wait.
what was your? Oh, go ahead, Dylan. You're asking the same question I was
I
going
was
to.
going to say, what was the last? Yeah, what was the last film you watched?
The last movie I watched was the Mr. Bean movie from 1997.
Oh, it's a classic.
Dylan, what are you up to one night a week?
I like killing people. Is that the night you were talking about?
No, the other night.
Oh, on Monday nights I do. I do a radio show on Monday nights, 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, UK time. You can Google what the
4
time
o'clock
difference
here.
is. You can figure it out. Yeah, if you live in like Germany, you can figure it out. You know, I play all sorts of like fun music, like a lot of grungy, like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots. A lot of 90s stuff. But then I try to play like a lot of new stuff you haven't heard. Not new stuff, but like stuff you haven't heard before. You know, like Cave In or Moontooth were really good. I played them. A band called Extreme. You ever heard of a band called Best Coast?
Can't say that I
The
have.
name rings a bell.
They're really good. You should check them out. So I try to mix it up, like some old stuff, some new stuff. You know, some stuff you've heard before, some stuff you've never heard. Blind Melon. I played a lot of Blind Melon. Elliott Smith, love that boy. So if you like all that stuff, tune into the show. There'll be a link in the description, I think. bouncedigitalradio.co.uk. You can listen to it worldwide if you have the internet. So you should do that.
There you go. And then I have my other show,
Okay.
Large Old Cup, stream of consciousness / spoken word podcast. We tell stories and ruminate on things and what have you. But that's going to be it for us today. Go out and see Fantastic Four next week, but first listen to us talk about Roger Corman's Fantastic Four as we watch it
Yes.
live. We'll see you guys next week. Later.
Bye.
Bye bye.